my name is Mandy, this is Evie, and today we are going to be talking about the books I read in May. Daddy's making funny faces at her behind the camera. This is my May wrap-up. Let's get to it! This month I read 14 books. Whew, I was busy. The first book that I read this month was Rune and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This book is the third book in the Grisha trilogy, and because it is the third book in a series, I won't tell you much about it because of spoilers. I started reading this book back in 2017 when I was pregnant, and we all know what happens to books that I started reading when I was pregnant. They didn't get finished. At least series I started reading didn't get finished. I think I would always at least read the first book, and then after that it was a gamble. I think the problem is that the first chapter was a little slow and I wasn't interested in what was happening at the time. Of course, rereading it this time, I found out that things picked up about a chapter after I stopped reading. Who knows, maybe if I had read that extra chapter, maybe I wouldn't have been reading it this month. At the risk of people's scorn, the one word I have to sum up this book is meh. There wasn't anything inherently terrible about this book, but there wasn't anything amazing either. That's why I gave it a 3-star review. I mean, the plot was good enough, but I wasn't invested in the romance. I honestly didn't feel like there was much chemistry between Alina and Mal. I didn't really care about her ending up with him. The build-up and conclusion of this book was just okay. I mean, I can remember bits and pieces of it, but overall it wasn't a super memorable ending to the series. My favorite character in the book was Nikolai, and because he has his own series now, the King of Scars series, I am actually really excited to start reading that. The next book that I read was Love, Life, and the List by Casey West. This book is about a girl who is an artist. She really wants to have her art displayed at a local gallery that she works at. They have a specific night for artists to submit their work, and you could potentially have it on display and for sale that night. She shows her artwork to her boss, who says that her artwork does not have enough depth to make it quite yet. He says that she has talent, but it just needs more. To gain life experience and have her work shown at this gallery, she creates a list that will help her art gain depth. So along with her BFF Cooper, who incidentally she has a crush on, they go out trying to make some life experiences happen. There's a little romance, there's a little fun, and just like any good Casey West book, she does throw a little bit of seriousness in there, but it's a nice balance between serious and fun romantic comedy. I rated this book 4 stars. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked Abby, our main character, and I thought that her friendship with Cooper was fun. The next book that I read was Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. This book is a YA retelling of Wonder Woman. You may have seen there are some other books out there that have taken DC comic characters and turned them into YA characters. A couple of big authors have written, such as Leigh Bardugo with this one. I know Sarah J. Maas wrote a Catwoman version. Anyways, I mean, it's a typical origin of Wonder Woman. She lives on the island with all the Amazons, and someone crash lands onto the island. This time it is a teenage girl, Diana / Wonder Woman. She discovers that the girl that crashed on the island is actually a descendant of Helen of Troy. What people don't realize is that it wasn't just Helen's beauty that caused everyone to fight over her. She is actually what is called a warbringer, which basically her presence encourages and inspires conflicts with men. And if she is allowed to get to a certain point in her life, World War III is basically going to happen. And Diana is told that if she just leaves her to die on the island, that the world will be happy and safe after that. But of course, she can't just let a random girl die. So she goes on an adventure to hopefully cure this. It's hard to describe my feelings on this book without giving spoilers, so as vaguely as possible, I will tell you that I rated this book 3 stars. I was really liking where the story was going and how it built up. Until the end, there was a twist that I just didn't see coming. I know that's what twists are, but it just didn't feel right to the story for me. It felt like it was a little forced. So because of that, I only gave this book 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I rated this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This book is about 2 magic workers. They don't really call it magic in the book, but that's what it is for lack of a better word. They have, throughout their lives, done competitions where basically they each provide a champion and they duke it out. Magically, there are a lot of vague rules you don't necessarily know, but the stage that this magical competition is set at is the Night Circus. The Night Circus shows up without warning. One day it's not there and one day it is, and it is only open at night, so from sundown to sunup. This book takes place over the course of years, and I liked the build-up, I liked the characters. You only get bits and pieces throughout the years of what is happening, and a lot of that is part of the charm of the book. The way that the story is told is very whimsical and mysterious. I enjoyed the different characters that were involved in the Night Circus. The main characters, Celia and Marco, who are the ones duking it out on this stage. They were fun and believable. I was really enjoying the story. The ending did come a little bit out of nowhere, and so that's why I only rated it 4 stars, but it was still a good ending. The next book that I read is The Geography of Lost Things by Jessica Brody. This book is about a girl named Allie whose mom is about to foreclose on their house. Allie grew up in this house and she does not want things to change. She's trying everything she can to try to save this house. A couple of weeks before they are set to foreclose and lose the house, she finds out that her estranged father, who had passed away a couple months before, left her his precious Firebird convertible. It seems like the answer to all of her problems. If she can sell it for a large sum of money, she can save her house. The biggest problem is the car is a stick shift and she can't drive stick shift. The person who can drive stick shift, her ex-boyfriend Nico. Yay! Nico does not want her to give up this car. He thinks it's a classic and he doesn't think that she should let this go out of her life. He makes a deal with her that if he can come up with the money that they need to save her house, that she will keep the car. His plan involves trading up things. You know, you start with a rubber band and you keep trading up until you can get something that is worth the amount they owe on the house. Along the way, we learn about Allie's relationship with her father. We find out in bits and pieces why her and Nico broke up. I thought it was a really good mix of fun and serious. I liked the twist of trading up. It made it more than just a normal road trip story. So I rated this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Poisoners Handbook by Deborah Blum. I mispronounced her name in my May TBR, but Blum is correct, not Bloom. This book is a nonfiction book and it explored the birth of forensics in Jazz Age New York. It was split up into different poisons that were common during the time, and it shared examples and the situations where forensics took off with that particular poison. This book had really good information. I liked the stories. The biggest problem is that they weren't always interesting. I think that may have had something to do with the narrator. I was listening to this on an audiobook. The narrator was a little monotone. Overall, I liked it, but it was nothing special. That was my nonfiction book for the month. Hopefully my next month's nonfiction book will be more enjoyable. The next book that I read was Lair of James by Libba Bray. This is the second book in the Diviners series, so I won't explain much about the actual story because I don't want to give away spoilers. I will say that I gave this a 3.5 star review. The villain in the first Diviners book was kind of intense and scary. The villain in this book was not quite as scary. In the previous book, you got bits and pieces of all these different characters, but you didn't fully see their connections. In this book, they finally came together, and I really enjoyed seeing that. The climax was not as fulfilling as I would have liked, and so that's why it is only a 3.5 star, even though I did enjoy it. The next book that I read was This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. I had high hopes for this book. I have heard so many good things about Victoria Schwab's writing, and it really fell flat for me. It was a mixed genre book, a mixture of almost a dystopian slash horror slash some magical elements. Basically, this world became so terrible and so violent that violent acts create monsters. There are 3 different kinds of monsters based on what type of violence was committed. With each greater violence, the monsters become more sophisticated. The top monster is called the Sunai, and that's one of our main characters, August. He's a Sunai, but he doesn't want to be a monster. The city is divided in 2. There are 2 ruling members, and August is loyal to one, and our other character, Kate, is the daughter of the other. Basically, the balance is precarious between the 2 sides, and there's not a lot more I can say about it without spoiling the story. All I can say is that this was just a really meh book. Because of that, I gave it a 2.5-star review. There was nothing special, and I don't care about reading the next one. Next month, I think I'm going to do a mid-month wrap-up if I'm going to read this much. The next book that I read is Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Welch. The basics of this book is a girl in Ireland who has recently had her heart broken through mysterious ways. We don't know what it is in the beginning. She finds a guide called Ireland for the Heartbroken. Within it are different prompts of things to do to let go of your heartbreak when you're at different monuments and tourist sites in Ireland. She decides to do this along with her brother's friend. Along the way, we learn a little bit more about her heartbreak. I enjoyed this book. I give it a 3.5-star review. I thought the romance was nice and realistic. It was slow building. Typically in a book like this, it would be a super fast burning romance. It only takes place over a couple of days, but it takes its time like all good romance should. The next book that I read was Fame, Fate, and the First Kiss by Casey West. This is about a girl who is filming her very first movie. She doesn't have time for romance, but of course her tutor is attractive and maybe something will bloom from there. While this book was enjoyable, it just didn't quite have the charm that I've come to expect from Casey West books. I think one of the charms is that it's just everyday people in a normal Casey West book, and this girl was someone who was trying to be famous, and it just didn't fit the feel of the other books. Because of that, I only gave it a 3-star review. I still liked it, but I don't think that I will be running out to reread it anytime soon. We're almost done. Stay with me here. The next book that I read was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I love this book. This was my favorite book of the month, and I think it's one of my favorite books of the year. This is about a girl named Emily who is a teen mom. Her daughter is 2 years old. She's in her senior year of high school, and this is normally a time where people make decisions about college. But Emily is not quite sure what to do. She's struggling between making choices for what she wants in her life and making choices that would be good for her daughter. This is a book about a girl learning to find out who she is despite the label of a teen mom holding her back in her life. One thing I forgot to mention is she loves to cook, and she is an amazing cook. It's almost like magic whenever she does cook, and I love seeing the descriptions of her food. I love cooking. I'm a mom. This book was a perfect fit for me. I related so much to her even though we are in such different points of our life. Every time she had thoughts about her daughter, I've had those thoughts too, and it was really nice to know that being a mom is universal. We can relate to each other despite differences in situations. 5 stars. The next book that I read this month was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I don't know what to say about this book that's not going to give me hate, because I almost DNF'd it. The first third of the book was such a struggle to me that I did almost DNF it. After that, the plot kind of picked up, and while I was interested in what was going to happen, I didn't care about the characters. It feels like the cast of characters in this series has gotten so big that I have a hard time caring about all of the characters. The story did pick up midway through the book, and I was enjoying the plot. I still didn't really care about the characters. There was more involvement of characters from previous books in the last half of this book, and so maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. The other thing is this book really was on the border of what I am comfortable with as far as sex in the books. In fact, I think it really did lean a little bit over the border of what I'm comfortable with, but because I have come this far, I just wanted to keep reading. Anyways, this book was on its way to being a 2-star book, but once the plot picked up and I was ignoring the romances, I settled on a 3-star review. The plot picking up was not quite enough to redeem this book for me, and I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on with any more Cassandra Clare books at this time. I may have just gotten a little too old for her, which is really sad because I love Cassandra Clare. The next book that I read was Daughter of the Siren Cream by Trisha Levenseller. I read the first book last month and I liked the world and I liked the story. I wasn't a fan of the romance, but I figured I would read the next book, and the next book I was disappointed in. I won't tell much of the plot so that I don't give spoilers. Sorry, most of these books were sequels that I read this month apparently. The main character, Alosa, was just a little arrogant for me, and I feel like her arrogance led to telling me everything rather than showing me everything. And it just kind of got a little annoying. Maybe it's because I listened to it on audiobook. In the end, I did not care too much about it. I was just listening to finish it. And so I gave it a 2-star review. The final book that I read this month, I actually just finished about an hour ago. That is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. It was a Leigh Bardugo kind of month apparently. 3 books by her. 6 of Crows takes place in the Grisha world where there are Grisha. I won't go too much into that. Basically, people who have powers. As I was starting to read this, my husband read the description for this book and said, "Is that an Ocean's 11 book?" And yeah, I guess that's how I would describe this. This is Ocean's 11 for YA fantasy. The main character is given a task to break someone out of an unbreakable palace in another country. He assembles a team of 6 people and they try to accomplish this, just like in Ocean's 11. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I have to say that it did live up to the hype. I was a little bit worried. If you've seen my video on intimidating books, which I will link below, you'll know that I was afraid of reading this book. I'm happy to say that my fears were totally not necessary at all. I love this book. I give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked the characters. The characters were great. I am totally shipping one of the romances really hard, and I hope that we see more of those characters in the next book. I can already tell this is going to be probably my longest video yet. Thank you for sticking around and listening to all the books that I read this month. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to be reading quite as much this next month. We are going on vacation to see my parents for 2 weeks, and who knows if I'll have much time to read then. If it seems like I'm reading as much in June as I did this month, I will split this up and have a mid-month wrap-up for all of you so that you don't have to suffer through such a long video again. Thank you for sticking around for this video. If you liked what you saw, feel free to subscribe. I would love to have you around more. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in May was. Hopefully you are having a great start to summer and have a great day.